Peace, family. I pray you're blessed. I pray you're doing your best out there wherever you are. Peace to the families, peace to the tribes, peace to my brothers and sisters. Listen, sometimes I'm not ready for the conversations that I need to have with my children. And I'm just not ready. Like, the world is so different now in comparison to like how it was when I grew up. So much is changing, and it's changing so rapidly. Sometimes I'm like, okay, can I keep up with this? Am I teaching them the right thing? Am I giving them the right guidance? I'm always questioning myself. So today I had to teach my son, like, if someone's bullying you, you can only use the equal amount of force in responding to that bullying. Like, you can't go beyond that. If they're only using their hands, you can't pull out a knife and harm them with a knife. A weapon can't come into the picture unless they have a weapon. It has to be an equal amount of force, or you might be looking at jail time. And what my fear is, if I put my son in the wrong environment and there's bullying going on, then there'll be like a certain amount of resentment and fear that's kind of building up. And then his reaction to the bullying might be over exaggerated. I don't want to see that happen to my child. I have seen this pattern before. My oldest daughter, I was working the day shift and she was at school during the day. And then at the time I was a single parent. So I had to put her in an after school program because she got out of school before I got out of work at 5. And so in that after school program, she was being bullied by a little boy that had documented behavioral issues. And so I guess it had been going on and on and on, but the staff at the after school program weren't really handling it or addressing it appropriately, and I was not made aware of it. So I guess one day my daughter got sick of this child harassing her, and she lost her temper and she just started going crazy. They said she was throwing toys at him, she was yelling, she was screaming. She had an absolute meltdown, and they immediately labeled her as the problem, told me that they were considering taking her out of the after school program, and how bad her behavior was. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, before this day, this child hasn't had any behavioral issues, so somebody's going to have to explain to me what made her have this meltdown. I mean, you're with her after school every single day, and I pay a pretty penny to send her here, so I want to know what's going on. And so they started, asking questions and doing an investigation. And at the time, my daughter was so upset that she was just crying and she couldn't talk. So finally she calms down, and I say, well, what happened to you? I need you to tell mommy what happened to you today. Why did you get so upset? And she was like, well, this boy is always bothering me. He's always following me around. He's always taking my stuff. He's always doing this. He's always doing that. And the adults are not doing anything about it. And today he stabbed me in my arm with a pencil. And so I was like, what? I said, wait a minute. I look at the administrator. I'm like, did you know that he stabbed her in the arm with a pencil? And she's like, no. I mean, she said it, but I didn't know it was like true. I said, well, let's look at her arm. So I rolled up my daughter's sleeves, and she literally had a gash in her arm from a pencil stabbing. Skin broken and everything. And I'm like, you're labeling her as the problem, and she has a hole in her arm from a pencil? No, you need to get that little boy in check. You need to address whatever behavior issues he's having and make sure he's not tormenting other kids. But yeah, sometimes kids are being bullied and attacked over and over and over again. And this resentment and this fear and this anxiety is building. And then when they react, like when they finally react, it's an overreaction. So we have to teach our children to navigate these social situations and to be very emotionally intelligent about it. Say something the first time they do something wrong. Get help the first time. Tell the teacher. If the teacher doesn't say anything, tell another teacher. The other teacher doesn't say anything, tell the principal, tell the guidance counselor. Speak to your parents. Have your parents come up to the school. Make everyone aware of what the bullies are doing. The bullies should have no way to hide anything. They need to be exposed. Because then children that are not even bothering anybody get stabbed in the arm with a pencil. And the adults are not doing anything about it. And then that child is being blamed when they have a meltdown at school. Or after school program at that. So I had to have a conversation with my son. Like, listen, if somebody steps to you and you know they're being aggressive and they're only using their hands, all you can use is your hands. Or you run. And let them chase you. Because that means they're pursuing you. And then you respond. Yeah, don't be so quick to like lose your temper and lose your balance, where your emotions are all out of control and you're just responding and you're not having any self-control and then putting your future at risk. I don't want to see that happen to young people of any race. We have to teach our children to be emotionally balanced, in absolute control of their emotions, the king of their emotions, right? Because if you're not managing that fear, that anxiety, and all those emotions, and somebody attacks you, and it keeps happening over and over again, and the people around you are not doing anything about it, there can be an overreactive response. Because you've been suffering for a while and nobody's done anything about it. You see what I'm saying? But I don't know. No one had to sit me down and have these kind of conversations with me. I mean, I've been chased and jumped, and I had a whole bunch of fights that weren't fair because, you know, the girls in my neighborhood, they were coming at me in teams. They were looking at me like she's 5'9", she looks strong. Like we're coming in 2s and 3s and 4s. they wasn't really playing with me like that. You know what I'm saying? But I never pulled out a knife. Right? No, I didn't. And thank God I didn't have one. Because I didn't have this mindset when I was younger. I didn't know any better. It's just crazy what we have to teach our children, you know? Some of these conversations I'm just not ready for. Like, I took my son to get a physical exam. And they're like, oh, you need to sign this paper. And I'm like, what's this paper for? Oh, so we can give your son condoms. And I'm like, what does he need condoms for? He's not even having sex. And they're like, well, some teenagers are. We just like to get permission in case they come to us looking. And I'm just like, ugh. So now my son is looking at me like, what's that? What's a condom? What do I need that for? And I'm like, you don't need it right now, but you could in the future. So I have to sit down and explain to him what it is and why it's used and why they want, you know, this permission from me. And ask him what he thinks about it, what he feels about it. And it's like, it's kind of before his time. I know there are teenagers that are sexually active, but he's not. And sometimes I'm just not ready. It seems like things are just moving so rapidly, you know? You have to teach them about sex. You have to teach them about self-defense. You got to teach them about racial, ethnic hatred. You got to teach them about the history that's taught and the history that's not taught. You got to teach them about how to communicate with people, how to maintain their authenticity, how to manage their emotions. It's a lot. And now I think about it, I don't think my parents sat me down and taught me any of this. No, it was kind of like, my mother used to just be like, sit down and calm down. She didn't tell me the details about why. I just trusted what she said. I would just sit down and calm down. I don't know. I'm not ready. Today reminds me of the time, like, when my oldest daughter she was only 4 at the time. And she hit me with a question I wasn't ready for. She said to me, "Mommy, I know I was in your belly when I was a baby. But what I want to know is, how did I get out of your belly?" And I was like, I just changed the subject because I wasn't ready to answer the question. And so this child kept asking me this. I want to know how I got out. And I would just change the subject. I would give her a toy. I would give her candy. I would do everything to just avoid it. And one of my friends, I'll never forget it. I had a friend from Germany. We were in graduate school together. And she was like, Shonda, if the child is intelligent enough to ask the question, she's intelligent enough for the answer. And I was like, so I kept hesitating on giving her this lesson about how she got out of my body. And one day I was bringing her to preschool, and she just started crying in the back seat. And I'm like, "What happened?" And she's like, "Mommy, I don't want to grow up and become a woman and have a baby come out of my mouth." And I was like, oh God. And still, I didn't want to have the conversation, so I said, "Oh, don't worry, you don't have to have children if you don't want to." She was like, "I don't." I was like, "No, you don't." And then she stopped crying, and she was fine, and she went to preschool. But I thought about what my friend said. And when she came home, I began to explain to her how she got into my body and how she got out. And so I wasn't ready, but I had to get ready. And so as parents, the world is changing. It's not the world we grew up in. And sometimes it's going to feel like we're not ready to teach our children this or that, or to deal with this or that. But we just got to get ready. Do the best we can. Until next time.